Good evening, everyone. My name is Seema Shah, and I'll be your host for today's webinar presented to you by Krish Hope Rehabilitation Services, a not-for-profit organization that is committed to supporting the differently abled population. For today's webinar, we would like to welcome a very well-esteemed professional, that is Dr. Mini Joshipura. She is going to enlighten us with the resources related to dementia during COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm going to give you a little bit about Dr. Joshipura. Dr. Joshipura is a geriatrician, and she is affiliated with Trillium Health Partner program, that is Credit Valley Hospital and Trillium Hospital, as well as she is an assistant professor with University of Toronto. So welcome, Dr. Mini Joshipura, to the program, and now I would like you to please take on and talk about dementia during COVID.
Thank you, Seema, for the kind introduction, and thank you to Krish Hope, and thank you to everybody who's joining us today online. So as Seema said, I work as a geriatrics medicine doctor, and what I do in the clinics and the hospital is taking care of people who are over the age of 75. And about 70 to 80% of my practice involves taking care of people with dementia, both in the hospital as well as in the clinics. So in the last few months, especially since COVID started, me and my colleagues, we have noticed a strange thing. A lot of our patients with dementia who are doing quite well have suddenly changed. And let me tell you a story. So just a few weeks ago, I had a son of one of my patients call me and say, Dr. Joshipura, you need to see my mom very urgently. And I was surprised because I've been taking care of his mom for about 3 years. And she did have dementia. It was mild. She was living alone. She was driving, shopping. I wondered what happened. So we arranged for an urgent visit. We did some tests and I saw her in the clinic, and I was quite shocked. From mild stage of dementia just about 7 months ago, she suddenly progressed to late moderate stage.
Oh my.
And now the son was worried that she can't live alone. Her driver's license was pulled by the family doctor, and we couldn't find any medical explanation for why this has happened.
Yeah.
So the only thing that came upon in the interview, the son mentioned that when we first had the pandemic in March and April, they were so worried about mom getting COVID that they forbade her from getting out of the home.
Yes.
She stayed home the whole time. They brought groceries and left it at the door. They just said hi from the door. They would sometimes call her on the phone, and they were hoping that she'll be all right. But as soon as the restrictions started to reduce and they met mom, she was a completely different woman. And this is the story we are hearing again and again.
Absolutely.
From all my colleagues. And we're seeing more and more hospitalization of our patients with dementia. They're suddenly being brought in with behaviors that are difficult to manage, or caregiver burnout. And hence, I'm very interested in sharing with you some of the ways we can support people with dementia living in the community during this COVID pandemic. And I know there are many people who are joining who may not have dementia, and my goal for you is to have some understanding about what is dementia, how is it diagnosed, and I'm also going to talk about how we can prevent dementia if we don't have dementia. So that's my plan for today.
Thank you, and that's so very important. And I completely agree with you that more and more patients out there and the family members are concerned because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
It has progressed so fast. The regression you see is so fast. So absolutely, whatever we can do today to prevent and get some resources would be wonderful.
Great. So to start, I'm going to start with an agenda. Okay. So what I want to do today is cover some definition of dementia, because that's very important.
Yes.
Many people don't know whether this is dementia or age-related brain function changes. We'll talk about that. Then we're going to talk about what causes dementia, what are the types of dementia we have, and how do we actually diagnose and treat dementia, and how can we care for people with dementia. So that will be the first few slides in my talk. Then I'm going to spend some time talking about what are the things we can do to reduce our risk for getting dementia.
Okay.
And in the later half, we're going to talk about dementia and COVID. What are some of the challenges? What are some of the strategies we can do personally? How we can tap into the medical resources and the community resources. And in the last 10 minutes, we're going to wait for questions. You can send your questions through the chat function of the Zoom, and I'll try to address your questions. Okay? So we'll start by the definition. What is dementia? Now, as we get older, Seema, I'm sure you heard from people that our brain functions are not the same.
Yes.
We start to forget things. And one of the common things my parents or other people tell me is that they go to a room and they don't know why they are there. Okay?
Yes.
Or they leave something over there and they don't know what it is.
Yes.
Or they look at a TV program and they can't remember that name of the person that they know so well. Okay? And they worry, do they have dementia? So to have dementia, there are 3 conditions we have to meet. Okay? So the first one is that the change or a decline of your brain's thinking function has to be something that started slowly, not suddenly, slowly, and has to be continuously progressive. Okay, which means it started today, slowly, and then it continues to get worse with time.
Yes.
So if it's only happening sometimes and it's not changing,
Then
not
it's
dementia. Okay.
So you mean to say that it's gradual regression is what we are looking for?
Yes.
Okay.
And what are the brain's thinking functions? So memory,
Yeah.
language functions like finding words, visual spatial functioning like knowing where we are in space, executive functioning like problem solving and judgment. Those are the thinking functions. So whatever you are very good at, now slowly you are not being able to do that. The second condition is that these symptoms have to be severe enough that it impacts your daily activities. Okay.
Yes, that's the key.
Yeah. So if it does not impact your daily activities, you're driving, shopping, going to work, cooking, socializing, everything same, that's not dementia. That's age-related brain function.
Yes,
changes.
that's like half of the people will be
Yes.
okay, that's good.
I see so many people in my clinic who don't have dementia, but they're worried about it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So true.
And the third condition is that there are many medical and mental health conditions that look exactly like dementia. Okay. For example, depression, severe anxiety, and medical conditions like delirium from pneumonia or urinary infection. They are treatable conditions that cause confusion and brain function changes. So that's not dementia. So 3 conditions: gradual and progressive decline in the brain's function, severe enough to affect your day-to-day functioning, and you have to make sure it's nothing treatable going on. Okay? So the next slide, we'll talk about what causes dementia. Now, we really don't know what causes it. But if we look at the brain under this microscope of people who have had dementia and who died, what we see is brain cells have broken down. And when we see them over stages, what we see is that there is progressive brain cell breakdown. And the medical term for this is neurodegeneration. Okay?
Yes.
So, and if you look at the types of neurodegeneration, there is one kind called the Alzheimer's type. It was discovered by Dr. Alzheimer's.
Okay, that's
And there are other ones, vascular, Lewy body, and so forth. But the common thing is that they all have degradation and progressive degradation. Okay? So if you look at this slide on the left, they are both the same age. The left side brain is a normal brain. That's how it should look like. But in people who have Alzheimer's disease, there's progressive degradation of the brain cells, and in the end it shrinks, and it's much different from a normal brain cell looks like.
You can see that.
Okay? Now, although we don't know what the cause is, we know that the increasing age is the biggest risk factor.
Absolutely.
Okay? So as you get older, the more chances for you to get dementia. For example, if you're under 64, your risk for getting dementia is about 7%.
Okay.
65 to 74, about 12%. 75 to 84, 40%.
Wow, that's almost like a 50%.
Yeah.
Wow.
And over 85, depending on the studies that you read, 42 to 53 or 60%.
Yeah,
But
that's
the good news is that not all old persons develop dementia. There are at least 30% of people over 85 who do not have any dementia. So don't assume that just because getting old, you're going to get dementia. Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
So let's talk about the types of dementia next. Okay. One common question I have in the clinic from my patients and their relatives is, my mother has dementia. Does she also have Alzheimer's?
Yes.
Have you heard that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
That's very common.
Yeah. So I try to explain to people in the terms of an umbrella term. So dementia, if you think of it as a big umbrella, there are different types of dementia there. And the most common type is the Alzheimer's type of dementia. That's worldwide about 70%. Okay. The rest, there are many other types of dementia too, like vascular dementia, Lewy body dementia, Parkinson's dementia, frontotemporal dementia. So there are other dementias in the world, but they are not that common.
Yeah.
So if your mother has Alzheimer's, yes, she has dementia. But if she has dementia, she may not have Alzheimer's. She might have other ones too. Okay.
Yes.
So let's now talk about how is the diagnosis of dementia made?
It's very important because people, most of them, don't understand where to go or how to access that services. So this would be the key.
Okay. So first let's talk about what's the earliest symptoms of getting dementia. Okay. The very beginning changes that most people report, especially in Alzheimer's dementia, is short-term memory loss. Okay, like forgetting where you put your things. For example, this man put his glasses in the refrigerator and he just found them.
Yeah.
So for misplacing items that are important, like keys and wallets, or forgetting conversations and repeatedly saying the same things, forgetting whether they took the medications or not, and having to take, sometimes taking it double.
Yes.
The other symptoms are difficulty with words. Okay, so for they can't really know the names of common things. Is this a glass? What do you call it? So increasing word finding difficulties. And the next one is increasing difficulties with visual spatial function. That means you go to a familiar place like your neighborhood or the mall, and you can't quite figure out which way to turn. Now, if you're going into a new place, that's not necessarily a dementia. I get lost a lot in new places, so that's not dementia.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That's the key.
The other things that are cognitive functions are problem solving and judgment. So suddenly you are becoming victims of scams. You make poor judgments about cooking or about money, and any new or sudden change in behavior or personality. So these are some of the early initial symptoms that warn you that they may be dementia. And remember, they have to be so big enough that your daily functions are impacted.
And you know what? The most common that I see or I hear is forgetting that the stove was on and they forgot burning and all that.
So a lot of safety concerns
Absolutely.
from that. Yeah,
absolutely.
So in the next slide, we'll talk about what happens when the dementia progresses, the later symptoms.
Okay.
So I didn't go into the stages of dementia, but as dementia starts with the mild stage and goes on to the middle stages and late stages and the terminal stage. Okay? As it goes past the early stage, in the later part, the memory loss becomes more common and more for not only short-term memory but also previous memory.
Okay.
There is increasing challenge with communication, more and more word finding problems, difficulty with understanding instructions. Like your father goes to the doctor and comes back and has no idea what was discussed there. Okay?
Yes.
So increasing troubles with comprehension, troubles with expressing themselves. People start getting lost even in familiar places. So driving becomes an issue. They are not able to complete any task without assistance. Somebody has to come and finish that with them. And in the very late stages, Seema, I'm talking about 5-6 years or maybe 10 years later, this starts affecting your basic activities. When the brain cell degradation reaches the deeper parts of the brain, mobility, swallowing, recognition, pretty much all the basic activities, and people start requiring increasing help with their personal care. Okay? And throughout these middle and late stages, people can start developing behavioral symptoms, and this becomes increasingly challenging for families to care for. Okay, so in the next slide, we'll talk about how is dementia actually diagnosed.
Yes, very important. And how to access the geriatricians.
Yeah, so you don't need to see a geriatrician for diagnosis. Your family doctor is good enough.
Okay, perfect.
But don't diagnose it yourself, because you might be missing some treatable condition. You might be mistaking dementia for age-related changes. So take your person with dementia to the doctor.
Right.
And it's very important that you bring family members with you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because the person with dementia doesn't necessarily see the symptoms themselves. They either overestimate it or they underestimate it. So you need to be very open with the doctor and tell them all the symptoms with examples. What did you see? Why are you worried that your mom or dad has dementia? What are the symptoms you have seen? When you come to the doctor, bring all your pills, bring a bag with all your medications,
Very important.
including the over-the-counter medications, because a lot of these pills are the culprit.
I completely
Especially sleeping pills, anti-allergy pills that you take over the counter.
Yes.
And just stopping these pills might help your problem. So bring all your medications. And what do you expect from the family doctor? They are most likely going to do a medical exam. So they're going to take a history, they're going to do a physical exam, and they will do a memory or a cognitive test. Okay? And based on that, they may decide whether you need further testing. So some people may need blood tests. Sometimes we order MRIs or CT scan. Not in everybody. If you meet those certain conditions, we do that. And only in conditions where the diagnosis is very challenging or there are other issues or you need specialized services, do you need a referral to a specialist like a geriatrician or a neurologist, or in some places the diagnosis is done by psychiatrists. So depending on the resources in your place, okay? Yeah. So to see the specialist, you need to first see the family doctor who has to refer you.
Yes.
Okay, so but you can start over there. And how is the diagnosis confirmed? I sometimes have my family friends from abroad send me copies of their MRIs and CT scans to diagnose. And I tell them, that's not how we diagnose dementia. I cannot look at an MRI and tell you whether you have dementia or not. So remember, the diagnosis is based on three things. First, you have to have all the clinical findings we talked about, the history, the physical exam. Secondly, you have to have a cognitive test, and it has to be made sure that it is much less core compared to what a person of your education would do in the test. Okay. And then the doctor has to make sure that they're not missing any treatable medical condition.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And I have noticed that it's usually the delirium or the UTI.
Yeah.
That gets almost, the same, the dementia and delirium. It's so similar.
Yeah. So that's a
It's
very good point. Yes, so delirium is a completely different thing. It's a treatable condition.
Yes.
And it's a medical emergency.
Absolutely.
And the difference is delirium happens suddenly.
Yes.
And it's associated with a medical thing.
Yes.
You are either sick from the pneumonia and something. Okay, so now let's go to the next one, and we're going to talk about the treatment of dementia.
Yes.
Okay. So we'll talk about treatment of dementia. So I'm sure this is not a surprise to anybody. We don't have any cure.
Yes.
There's a lot of research, but nothing promising so far.
Yes.
We do have medications, 4 actually, okay, that we are allowed to try in some selected group of patients who have confirmed dementia. And what we think that it might help with is slowing down the rate of decline a little bit. It doesn't cure.
It doesn't cure, yeah.
It doesn't stop it from getting worse. But in some people, there is a delay in the progression. And that might be worth it. You might have more number of years in the milder stages. Okay? But we definitely do have medications for treating behaviors.
The most important thing is the behaviors, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that makes it very difficult for caregivers.
Yes.
So we try to treat behaviors without medications, with behavioral supports.
Yes.
But if it doesn't work and if it's really causing a lot of distress, there are medications. And we also have very good medications to treat depression, which is very common with dementia. Yes. And it makes a huge impact on the quality of life.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we talked about the medications, and now let's talk about other treatment for dementia.
Yes.
Now, although this is not considered treatment, this is something we always tell people with dementia that they have to start doing, which is physical exercise.
Critical.
Even if they were not active before, even if they never exercised, now is the time they have to
do it.
And why? It's because we know that physically fit people who are stronger and have good balance tend to progress slower, have less hospitalization, and tend to remain independent in their own home for a much longer time. And those are most common goals we have. So people ask me, should I join a gym? Or should I, the weather is so bad, doctor, I can't go out for walks anymore. But I tell them, you can even walk indoors.
Indoors, yeah.
You can walk for a few minutes several times a day, and that can add up.
Yes.
If your balance is impaired, use a walker. But it's really imperative, no matter what stage of dementia you are in, to have physical exercises.
Physical exercises,
Yeah.
absolutely. So critical.
Yes. And the next thing that we talk to patients with dementia to help them is mental exercises to keep the brain active.
Sudoku, puzzles.
Yes, so puzzles, games, reading, they are good. But more than that, what we know, Seema, is social activities.
Wow.
Those are critical.
Yes.
Because we did an experiment some time ago, so not me, other researchers.
Yes.
What they did is that they put young people who are playing video games under an MRI scanner, which can look at the activity in the brain.
Right.
And they looked at how much parts of the brain were getting lit up when they did these activities. They're very complicated brain activities, but not too many places lit up. And they put them in a chat group and they're talking to other people, and a lot more brain cells got activated. So this is very surprising.
Absolutely, because we are social human beings.
Absolutely.
We are social beings, so we have to communicate and socialize, and that.
So it's very critical to get your people who have dementia to socialize with other people. That's a very important thing. And group social activities are very helpful. And especially if you are already in a social activity that you enjoy, it's important to keep continuing.
Yes.
You can tell the people, Dad has a little bit of memory problems, but they should still come. They should still participate until they are very difficult to participate anymore. Yeah.
No, I agree, completely agree.
So in the next, we're going to talk about what is the role of the family or the caregiver. Okay, so what are we, suppose somebody in my family got diagnosed with dementia. What are my major goals? What should I be doing? The number one thing to do, the first thing to do is get an appropriate diagnosis. Okay? Don't make your own diagnosis. Don't assume it's dementia. Don't assume it's aging. Get a diagnosis.
Yeah, definitely. What I've noticed is sometimes what happens is family just ignores that, oh, it's old age, nothing, and keep on going, not realizing that, taking that person to the family doctor, getting that assessment done is so critical.
Absolutely. So I sometimes see people in the hospital, okay, and they're showing signs of late or middle-late dementia. And I call the families and said, when did this begin? And they can't tell. They said, oh, Dad was an excellent driver, but he had a few accidents, so we took away the car. But he doesn't have dementia, just aging. So it's very important to get a diagnosis so that you can do things that are important to do.
Absolutely.
You should discuss with your doctor if your person is one of those people who can get those medications. So that's very important to talk about that. And as a caregiver, it's really critical that you get yourself educated about what dementia is, how it progresses, what is the stage right now, what's going to happen next, what are the things I should expect. It's very important to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I was just going to say, absolutely. And, with dementia, we've noticed that family members, caregivers do not start planning, no planning for the advanced, stage planning. So it's always good to start slowly, but definitely start planning.
Yes. So your doctor can tell you that your person is in this stage, and in the next stage these are the common symptoms, and your job would be to ensure safety and ensure supervision for tasks that are difficult for them or unsafe to complete. For example, if they're leaving the stove on, like you said, time to bring prepared meals.
Absolutely.
If they're not driving well, they're having accidents, time to let the doctor know and have support for driving. If they're getting into financial scams, or even if they're different, very important to get powers of attorney documents done.
Yes, absolutely.
And to find out from the family doctor and what are the community resources in your area, so that you can get connected. What we know, Seema, is that caregivers of people who have dementia tend to have very difficult or very poor outcomes in their own health, physical and mental health.
And this is so well said and so true. This is what we see in our practice as well. that caregiver burnout
Yes.
is the biggest issue.
Yes. So you need to get community resource, and you
Yes.
have to take good care of your own health. Okay, because the person with dementia is dependent on you. Okay. Now let's talk about community resources.
Yes.
What's there in the community that can help you take care of somebody with dementia?
Absolutely, yeah.
Now this will be based on where you live. Okay, it might be different in Canada, might be different in different parts of Canada, maybe different in India or in the Middle East or in US. So you have to find out from your local area what you have. So in Canada, for example, in Ontario, one of the biggest resources we have is the home care system. And Seema is a home care coordinator, so she's a very good person who knows that. And home care systems in Canada, in Ontario, we call them LIN. We used to call them CCAC.
That's right. Now it is Local Health Integrated Network.
Yes. And they have professionals like speech language pathologists, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, social workers, nurses, and what behavioral consultants. So they help you with several aspects of dementia.
Yes.
So you shouldn't have to take care of this alone. And we as from healthcare depend a lot on the home care resources. So very important to get connected. The second is the medical resources. So seeing a family doctor, and if necessary, seeing specialists like geriatrics. We have geriatrics outreach team with a whole team of social worker, occupational therapists, physiotherapists, and so forth.
And that is from the Trillium Health Partners.
And many hospitals have
many
that.
Hospitals.
Yes.
So at least in Peel region, it would be the Trillium Health Partners.
Yeah.
They have their outreach team program.
Yeah. And then the third biggest one in my eyes is the Alzheimer's Society. They're a wonderful resource, a wonderful community program.
Absolutely.
And anybody who has anyone with dementia should at least once go to the Alzheimer's Society's website.
Yes, and connect with them.
And connect with them, yes.
Absolutely.
They're very helpful, and they have a ton of information about the symptoms of dementia, the stages of dementia, right from the beginning stages to the end stages. So they have, and they also have programs. And even people who don't have dementia, they have programs to help your brain. It's a very good resource to connect to.
Seniors Day programs that they run.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, during this COVID times, the resources are limited. Even at Alzheimer's Society, they do a little bit of virtual programs, but it's not the same as it was.
No.
Everybody's trying hard to incorporate certain things and bring up to the plate.
That's right.
But home care, caregiver respite program that the home care provides is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Where the PSW workers can come and support the family member with dementia while you are taking some time off for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very important service, the respite care.
Yes.
Then in people there who are not able to cook or manage their meals, there are meal delivery services. Then we have something called the Safely Home program, where you have a bracelet and registration with the local police if you're having somebody who wanders.
Yeah.
And if living at home is becoming unsafe and you need to have an alternate living arrangements, we have the privately funded retirement homes, and we have the publicly funded long-term care homes.
Yes.
So these are the different community resources that we have to support people with dementia.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I'm going to completely switch gears.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about people who have not yet developed dementia.
Yeah.
How to keep our brains healthy.
Yes.
Okay. What are the tips to reduce risk for developing a dementia? Okay. The number one thing I have to say, Seema, is to keep your body in a good shape. Okay. Healthy mind in a healthy body.
Absolutely.
Yes.
They go together. Healthy
Absolutely.
mind, healthy body.
What we notice is that high blood pressure, which is so easy to treat, is one of the risk factors for dementia.
Oh.
It can increase your risk for vascular dementias. Yeah. So we have such good effective treatments for high blood pressure.
Yes.
Similarly, there are things like sleep apnea.
Yes.
Which with CPAP machine we can reduce the chance of getting dementia. And even your medical conditions like diabetes, heart disease, if you keep them into check and if they remain stable, your dementia risk reduces.
Yes.
So,
Even thyroids.
even thyroid.
I've noticed that.
So
a
keeping
lot.
medically fit is number one.
Number one.
Number two, you don't have to wait to get dementia. Exercises are always helpful for the brain. Okay? And we know that regular exercises, like at least 3 times a week, about 20 minutes per day, enough to break you into a sweat. It increases circulation, not only for the heart, but also for the brain. So it's very important. The second thing for a fit brain is daily exercises.
Daily exercises. That's critical.
Yeah. The third thing is social activity again. We come to
Yes.
social activity again and again. So in social activity, what I mean is staying connected with other people. We find that people who are isolated, who are not connected, tend to have increased risk of getting dementia than people who are active and about with other people.
Yes, and I've noticed more and more people with depression, or as you mentioned, mental health issues.
Yeah.
They tend to self-isolate,
Yes.
and then it could trigger into the early stages of dementia and the
could.
roller coaster.
Yeah.
You start going on that ride.
Yeah. And protect your brain. Wear a helmet. Prevent head injury, because head injuries, if you have a scarring in the brain, as you get older, there is increasing degeneration. So even when you're a child or when you're an adult, try to avoid head injuries.
That's the most important one, and I think it's so easy for parents and caregivers to forget. Even with little children, they run and they hit something, it's okay, go. But I think safety is important.
Yeah. And smoking affects the circulation in the brain. So if you are smoking and you want to stop smoking, you can get help from a family doctor. Don't try to do it alone. It's a difficult thing to stop smoking alone. Excessive alcohol intake, there is a whole dementia called alcohol dementia. Happens only in people who drink excessively. So if you're drinking alcohol, try to reduce it.
Yes, so I think that would be something, if you can just a little bit elaborate about alcohol dementia.
Yeah, so people who drink excessive amounts of alcohol, they develop a deficiency of a nutrient called thiamine.
Okay.
And thiamine is very important for brain cell brain cells to be in good health.
Okay.
So people who are depleted of thiamine with excessive alcohol intake, they develop this irreversible damage to the brain center. So if you are in the habit of drinking excessive alcohol, it's good to cut it back. The other thing that damages brain or increases your risk for dementia is sleeping pills.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And there are no safe sleeping pills. There are prescription medications, over-the-counter medications, they all impact brain's thinking functions. So if you are not on it, don't start.
Yes.
But if you're on it, don't stop suddenly. You can go into withdrawal. Take the help of a family doctor to cut it back. Okay? So let's talk about more tips. Eating well. Now this is a question I get all the time. People bring me articles about turmeric, coconut, Q10, things they find on the internet.
Yes.
And I tell them, if it's helping you, please go ahead.
Go ahead and continue.
If there is no side effects, please go ahead. I don't have the medical authority to say that it works or it doesn't work. But we know that healthy eating, especially most of our research was in Mediterranean diet.
Okay.
So having a diet with whole grains, fruits and vegetables, fish compared to red meat,
Okay.
olive oil.
Yeah.
These seem to be healthy for the brain. It's healthy for the heart. It's healthy for the brain.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
The Greek yogurt and all that stuff.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Second thing is to challenge your brain. So how do you challenge your brain? So if you keep doing the same things over and over, meeting the same people, doing the same things, you're not really challenging your brain.
Yeah.
So challenging your brain can happen by learning new things, new language, a new skill, starting a new hobby. Okay? And
so
traveling.
Yes. So any age, you need to challenge your brain.
Yes.
It's not like you're done with your life, senior, retired, don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
No, challenge your brain.
Yes. So
that
learning
you
a new skill, starting
Yes.
guitar lessons or learning to dance. These are very good for the brain.
Absolutely.
And Seema, you'll be surprised to hear that we have found that people who volunteer, they tend to have lesser risk of dementia than people who are self-absorbed.
Oh, really? Wow.
It's not a strong connection,
Yes.
but we think there is something about the altruistic thinking of the person that helps with the brain stay in good health. So if you have chances to volunteer, that's a good thing for you. Music and dancing, it helps to develop your non-dominant brain. So when you get dementia and the dominant brain is degrading, non-dominant brain is strong. So people who are experts in music and dancing seem to do well.
Absolutely.
And if you have any kind of sensory impairment, vision or hearing impairment especially, wear your hearing aids.
Yes, and this is one of the big thing that we notice, that seniors who have hearing losses,
Yeah.
they do not want to wear hearing aids.
It's not an easy thing to wear hearing aids. Seema.
You know what? First of all, they think that, oh, I'm senior. I don't need it. I don't need to spend that much of money.
It is expensive.
It is expensive, but this is so critical for your social skills.
Yeah.
When you're communicating with others, if you don't hear, you will not be able to take part in it.
Yes.
Or understand, or will have
Absolutely.
negative thoughts about other person, what they're talking about.
That's true. And the thing is, once you develop hearing loss from age, it gets worse with time.
Yes.
So if you wait until your hearing loss gets really bad to get a hearing aid, that's kind of too late.
Yes.
So if you can't hear, get a hearing aid. Okay.
Absolutely.
So that's all I have to say about reducing a risk for dementia. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to move on to dementia and COVID.
Yes.
And I want to tell you that, like the example I gave you, we find that people who are older,
Yes.
when they get COVID, they have the more severe form of COVID.
Yes.
In fact, if you remember in our stage 1, most of the people who died of COVID were people from long-term care home.
Yes.
And majority of them were not
Yes,
only
yes.
frail, but they also
That's
had
right.
dementia.
Yeah.
So it's critical that we do everything we can
Yes.
to reduce the risk of older people and people with dementia to get
Getting
COVID. So people ask me, how can we do this? And it's common knowledge. There's so much information going
Absolutely
on,
not,
but it's
yes.
still not fully accepted by people.
Yeah.
Okay, so I tell people that follow the guidelines of your local place. If you're living in South America, look at what the public health guidelines are saying there.
Absolutely.
For example, we live in Ontario, so we have weekly or monthly, twice a monthly updates from
Yeah,
our
we have
premier,
weekly.
from our premier, from our chief medical officer and health minister. They will tell you exactly that these 4 regions are in stage 2, which means only 10 people can gather indoors with distancing,
Yes.
and outdoors maximum 25 people. So pay attention to the
those important
guidelines.
Yes.
Okay, and if you want details about how to gather, look at those guidelines.
Yes.
If you remember one thing about prevention of COVID, it is physical distance,
Physical distancing and
hand washing. Physical distancing is critical.
absolutely.
So you have to make sure you're at least 6 feet away. Because when we talk, when we laugh, when we eat, we have particles, we have droplets coming out,
Yes.
and that's how COVID spreads
COVID
most of
spreads.
the time.
Yes.
Not so much with surfaces, but mostly with droplets. Okay?
Yeah.
If you look at the next slide, the next thing that we have is wearing a mask. Okay, so I brought my mask today. And it's not just important to wear a mask, but it's important to wear it properly.
Absolutely, yes.
So Seema, this is what I see mask wearing when I go to the mall.
I know people just leaving their nose, it's right up here.
Sometimes it's like this.
Yes, what's the use of
So wear it properly, covering it fully, the
Yes.
nose and the mouth.
Yes.
And why is that? Do you know, Seema, that all the respiratory viruses, the
Yes.
cold virus, the flu virus, the COVID virus, they get into our body through the nose
Okay.
and the mouth and the eyes, but mainly the nose. So if your nose is out, it's like taking an umbrella and opening it halfway and going in the rain.
Yes.
It's no good. So if you took your umbrella,
Then make use of it.
open
Yes,
it properly,
yes.
right? And wash your hands regularly, because every surface you touch, the COVID particles, the viruses can stay up to 72 hours.
Yes.
But if you are frequently sanitizing your hands, then you're reducing your risk. So 4 things: guidelines about gathering, distancing, proper wearing of masks, and hand sanitizers. Okay, that's how you reduce the risk of getting COVID. Okay, now let's talk about what did COVID-19 do to people with dementia. Yeah. So all these rules we made about gatherings, the main thing it did was it reduced the visits from friends and families and caused a lot of social isolation.
Yes.
Now wearing masks is not an easy thing. Okay?
Yeah.
People are not wearing masks like this because they like it. It's because it's difficult.
It is uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable. And if you're old and you're hearing impaired, you are communicating by lip reading.
Oh, that's even worse. Yes.
And if someone is wearing a mask, you can't hear what they're saying.
Yes.
And the other thing is that if you are lip reading, you imagine that I'm lip reading too. So when you talk to me, you lower your mask. So I have people coming in my clinic and they say, they're wearing masks, I'm wearing a mask. But when I ask them a question, they take off their mask.
Yes,
So
yes.
this is hard for
It
people to
is,
realize that you have to wear a mask. Okay,
Yes.
and people with dementia, they have much
It's
harder
even
time
harder
knowing why I have to wear a mask.
Yeah.
A lot of the places where our seniors used to go, they have closed, making it
Yes.
much difficult and more caregiver burden for our family caregivers.
Absolutely.
We can't go to
Completely.
day programs, they're closed. We can't go to restaurants and have a group dinner with our friends. Their indoor restaurant meetings are closed. So a lot of caregiver burden. Other challenges are that we used to enjoy life by meaningful ceremonies or
Yes,
parties and
yes.
family gatherings,
Yes.
barbecues, and
Yes.
Thanksgiving function,
Celebrations,
Halloween,
yeah.
or going to church or temple or mosque,
Yes.
or going to weddings and funerals. All this has stopped. These were meaningful things that brought us life and brought us meaning. And for older people, this really meant a lot.
Absolutely, yeah.
And this has really caused a lot of depression, a lot of meaninglessness in life. So it has caused a lot of impact on everybody. On everybody.
Absolutely, yes.
My life has changed a lot too.
Yes, me too. Like it's like what we are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, things have changed.
And a lot of people who are older or who have dementia live in group settings like a retirement home and long-term care homes. And they are particularly high risk for getting transmissions.
Yes.
And so we worry if they are living home unsafely and we have to put them there, we're worried. So a lot of people are now being kept home in an unsafe condition because they're worried they'll get COVID if they live there.
Yes.
And people are already living there or people are already in hospitals. The visitor policies.
Yes, that have changed.
You cannot visit your parents as much as you want. So if you look in this picture, the child is trying to talk to the grandma. Before, the grandma might be seeing the grandchild several times in a week. Yeah. So the other challenge is that you and I, we have adapted. We are used to internet, we can use technology. But for older people and people with dementia, adopting this technology is very challenging.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
telling them to learn how to use a computer or come to a Zoom webinar is super hard. Okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Now this is a little joke, and you can imagine I'm the person sitting in the chair, and I'm calling tech support to say this Zoom webinar is not working. And the tech support says the problem is located between the keyboard and the chair. That's with me. So this is a big problem because we have moved to virtual doctor visit, virtual day program, virtual webinars, and that's for older people to
Absolutely.
do. So all this has resulted in a huge impact in people with dementia.
Yes.
This is the reason we are seeing this steep decline in the cognition.
Social isolation.
Not only social isolation, but also they're becoming physically weak. They have less chances for exercise.
Less chance. Yes, very
So there's
true.
more frequent falls, more
Yes.
depression, more behavioral issues.
Yes.
And there are far more hospitalizations that we are seeing now because of falls or dementia getting worse or caregiver burnout than we used to before the pandemic. So it has had a huge impact.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely, yeah.
So what can we do?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about that.
Absolutely.
So first, let's talk about resources within us, the person themselves and their family and friends and close circles. Okay.
Yeah.
So I would continue to say that if you have medical conditions, a lot of people who are older and have dementia have not only dementia, they also have heart disease, COPD, diabetes, high cholesterol, osteoporosis, many things. Okay?
Yes.
So if you don't take care of those conditions, your brain will end up getting worse.
Yes.
So make sure you keep up with your doctor's appointments, even if it's virtually. Make sure prescriptions are refilled. Now, you know what happened, Seema, in the beginning of the pandemic? A lot of people thought that everything is closed. Yes, a lot of family doctors were closed, but hospitals were running.
Yes.
And people stopped coming to the doctors, stopped coming to the hospital. And their condition got so worse now.
Yes.
Now when we are seeing them, they are in a far advanced stages,
stage,
much more
yes.
difficult to treat. So number one, take care of your health. Keep up with your appointments. They're all now open, at least in Ontario. Number two, COVID doesn't mean you can't exercise. All those rules that your government is giving doesn't prevent you from walking.
Walk. Yes, very true.
Okay.
Going up and down the stairs, it's a good exercise too.
Even walking outdoors, Seema.
Yes. Now the weather is still okay.
If the weather is still okay, you don't have to wear a mask. As long as you're keeping distancing, going for walks are very good. And you can go, right now the malls are open.
Yes.
And you can go to walk in the malls, but remember, wear your mask, keep your
Safety
distance.
precautions.
It's still safe.
Yes.
So make sure that you're walking. And if you absolutely cannot go out, make sure you're walking at home. Don't get weak physically, okay? And if you're caring for somebody who has dementia and who are living alone, the role of the friends and family is to make sure they have access to food and transportation needs and other needs, make arrangements for that, okay?
Absolutely. Yeah.
The next thing I would say is that it continues to be important to stay connected, okay? And that means phone is good, Seema. So make sure you call each other. Make sure your family members have scheduled calling.
Yes.
So the other thing is that some of the online events are not so difficult to join. Like if they are very important to you, for example, if your church has an online streaming or your mosque has an online worship, go and ask some of the family members to help you join
it.
It's huge, important. It's very important to stay socially connected.
Absolutely.
Okay. We'll skip over the next slide, which we talked about connecting with the doctors and the hospitals.
Flu shot. Now the flu season, right?
Yes. So get your flu shots, and whenever the COVID vaccines come, make sure you take that.
And the only thing I would like to, just say is, with flu shots, people who are bedbound or can't reach or access outside, home care is the point of contact.
That's very
because
good.
Because we do provide, Lynn does provide in-home flu shots.
That's wonderful. Okay. Then, as I said, as Seema just mentioned, home cares are all open. And they will provide you with a lot of assistance. Just contact them. And if living at home is difficult and you need admission into a long-term care home, they are the ones to provide that. I'll skip to the next slide. This is also something I already said about Alzheimer's Society. Reach out to them. They are now doing a lot of what they were doing before, online and virtually and by phone. So they continue to remain a good resource. So there I end my talk, and I'm open for questions that I'm thinking will come through the chat.
Yes. Okay. You know what? We just got one question whether they wanted to know if is it dementia is it hereditary?
That's a very good question. Okay. So there is. So let's talk about Alzheimer's disease.
Okay.
The other dementias are not hereditary.
Okay.
And even Alzheimer's disease, majority of the time it's not. There's a very small number of people who have dementia in a very young age, in the 50s and 60s. We call that familial Alzheimer's disease. These are the people who have a very strong risk of family history or getting genetic Alzheimer's disease. But most people who get Alzheimer's disease in the late stage, 75 and above, their risk for getting dementia is not much higher than you or me. So it's not hereditary for most people.
Most people, okay. Yeah. And we're noticing more and more younger, adults, I would say around 50, they are getting hit by dementia, or they are like early stages of dementia.
So like I said, about 7% of people do develop dementia at the age younger than 65. Okay, and this has always been the case.
Okay.
It's sporadic. We don't know the reason.
Okay.
In those people, for their families, we provide genetic testing. But by and large, about 40% of dementia is in much older people. So I'm trying to look at the other question.
We got another question. It says, how do we go about family or caregivers that are in denial of their loved one being diagnosed with dementia?
So I would say that you may want to connect them to resources like Alzheimer's Society, where they give you clear-cut education about what is dementia, how does dementia look like, and what happens, and you can take them to the doctor to go with them and Absolutely. If you look at the first few slides that I presented, it was about how to understand that patients have dementia.
And I think, that is very true. And it is very hard for people to accept, that the loved one has dementia. But going through the process and understanding and talking to the family physician would definitely help. The other question that we have is, so we did discuss about is dementia hereditary, and you said it is not most of the time. The second part is, what would be the best position during sleep if a person has sleep apnea, and also if a patient experiences severe problems in swallow their saliva. Oh,
Okay, so these are two different
Two
things.
different things,
So let's talk
absolutely.
about sleep apnea first, okay? So sleep apnea is associated with dementia, and the best treatment for sleep apnea is to use the CPAP machine. Okay, now that's a terrible machine, not very easy to use. But like everything, like braces and glasses, once you start learning to use, you get better at it. But that is the most important thing to do. And I think they were asking which position to sleep in. The best thing to do is to not to sleep on your backs.
Okay.
The best thing is to sleep on your tummies, but that's a difficult thing to do. I've seen some of my friends and family of patients say that they will tie a tennis ball to the back of the shirt so that they cannot sleep on the back, so that they have to turn to the front. But the kindest thing is to work with your respirologist and find a CPAP machine that you can tolerate.
Yeah.
And the second question about swallowing.
Severe problem in swallowing.
Now, Seema happens to be a speech language pathologist, but I'll tell you about swallowing. The problems with swallowing in dementia happens in the late stages of dementia. It doesn't happen early. If it's happening early, there is some other medical diagnosis, so you need to see the doctor. And when it happens in the late stages of dementia, that's when we tell people that you are now looking at dementia being in the very late stages. And in the past, the common thing to do was to put a feeding tube, but now we don't recommend that because it doesn't help the dementia.
Quality of life, yeah.
It doesn't help the quality of life. So I think if you have a problem with swallowing in early stages, you should see the doctor for something
And
else.
as this person has mentioned that it is swallowing even their saliva, then definitely it is a high need to be seen by a family physician or a specialist just to see what exactly is going on medically.
And a speech language pathologist can also, look at how you're swallowing.
Yes.
And there might be a medical cause that needs to be attended to. It could be a serious medical cause. So please see your doctor about it.
Absolutely. And the second question is, there is a person asking if we are able to get the video recording in PowerPoint. Yes, absolutely. We will be providing, we'll be sharing it on our website, which is www.krishhope.com, the video recording as well as the PowerPoint slides. And now I would like to, I think there is one more question. So what we'll do now is I'll just going to talk about our next presentation, that is next week on a Thursday, same time, same place, 7 to 8. It would be Dr. Mini Joshipura again, and she will be talking about fall prevention during COVID. And this is also very, very critical and important topic because seniors and fall prevention are the most important thing for us as caregivers or family members to avoid other health issues with them. So this would be something for everyone to watch out, and please do register. Again, you can go onto our website and click that button to register for our next event. That is on Thursday, October 29th at 7 p.m. And I would like to now, I think, we have one more question. So let's see. What I'm noticing is, Dr. Mini, South Asians, how prone are they to dementia?
I don't have the statistics.
Okay.
Now, one thing is that overall the life expectancy of people from South Asian backgrounds, especially people who are living in India or other South Asian countries, are not as much as people who are living in the Western world. And as I said, dementia is a disease of old age.
Yes.
There are many people in these countries who pass away earlier from diabetes, which is the number one problem, or stroke or heart disease. So it may look like we don't have too much dementia, but it's probably because we don't have that many people who are old.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, so we don't know for sure, but we are not confident that it's because we are less prone.
Okay. And the other thing that I'm noticing is people with dementia, who they tend to revert back to their first language, even though they can speak so many languages.
Yes.
But at the end, with dementia, you will see falling back into their own.
That's true. Yeah. So that is very common in the language changes of dementia. People start losing fluency in their third or fourth language.
Yes.
And by the end, they start reverting to their mother tongue, the language that they learned in the very beginning. So that's very common. It's because the language that we learn as children are embedded deep into our brains. Okay.
And the other thing is, what I'm noticing is with dementia, the resources that are out there in our region of Peel for specific, ethnic backgrounds, it's very limited.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of work to be done.
Absolutely.
So there's a question, what's the prevalence of dementia in our region of Peel? So I don't know the region of Peel, but in Mississauga, where I work, the prevalence of dementia, so the prevalence of older people, older than 65, is about 14% of population. People over 65 is 14%. And like I said, people over 85 are the ones who get dementia most. And so the prevalence is about half of that, half of the 15% of the population. So I don't know the exact number. Yeah. Now, one good news I have to say, Seema, is that overall, there is a general decline in the prevalence of dementia. So as time goes by, like our generation and our children's generation, we might see less dementia than we saw now. And we believe it's from better medical care, higher degrees of education, and I think these are the two main things. Yes, that's what we're seeing worldwide. The prediction is that there will be much less dementia for the future.
That is good.
Okay.
So I guess we'll thank Dr. Mini Joshipura for such a wonderful presentation and giving us insight about dementia and prevention. And thank you everyone who has joined us from all over the world for joining and learning more about dementia during COVID. And we'll like to end this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.